Hello, hello, hello. This is game one of the semi-final. One of the guys we're following here, Matt Light. He's playing his control deck that he's supremely confident about, and he's up against Cyrus Bales playing Jund. Now it's quite an interesting little matchup, of course. This was one of the first PTQs post-bannings, and Jund was considered to be considerably weaker with the loss of everyone's favourite 4-drop, but as it turns out, the Jund decks have been devastating, actually, due to a 1-drop called Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, for the most part. I think that a lot of people were... I mean, I certainly was surprised when Bloodbraid Elf was banned over Deathrite Shaman. I honestly thought the Deathrite Shaman was very close to being on the chopping block. But I think that the idea behind it was that they wanted to ban a card that hurt Jund but didn't hurt too many other decks.
I think also you want to... If I know anything about how the Magic developers think, is they really hate randomness, and they did like despise randomness, and Bloodbraid Elf is one of those cards that randomly wins or loses you the game, depending on, like, you turn over a Liliana from a Bloodbraid Elf, it's just absolutely devastating at that point. But you know, you turn over, I don't know, a Thoughtseize when their opponent's got like one card in hand, and you know it's a land.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted randomness out of the game, they shouldn't have made the Cascade mechanic in the first place. I do remember when I first saw the Cascade mechanic, I just went, that is a terrible mechanic, and it's just... You know, unfortunately there's ways to like break through it with the rules, as well, as anyone who's played the Hypergenesis deck in Legacy will tell you. But I do agree that I think that they want to remove...
So speaking of Deathrite Shaman, there it is, straight out the blocks from Cyrus.
Yep, and he is... No, I think they're just rearranging the graveyard. And it's allowed him to power out a Dark Confidant here. And Matt's taking 2 damage, so is he going to... is he just going to mana leak here? Yeah, it looks like it.
Now we actually get to see some really interesting plays in this game, and this might be one of them coming up here.
Matt lightning bolts away there on the...
Now, Matt bolts away here. Matt was stuck on 2 land, but he also had a mana leak in his hand. Cyrus had no more land in his deck, but luckily for him, top decked the land and managed to get out the Tarmogoyf. And we had a really interesting discussion about this particular play, because one thing Matt could have done is Matt was in fact fine just passing without bolting Deathrite Shaman, because he's got a mana leak. So he can mana leak whatever it is Cyrus plays the next turn. Even if he does top deck a land, he's probably going to make a 3-drop. And then Matt can untap himself after having used the mana leak, and at that point, if Cyrus hasn't made the second land, he can sort of bolt at end of turn.
I mean, this may have been Matt's fear that Cyrus had a Inquisition, so he could have gone like Inquisition.
Well, he can bolt in response to the Inquisition.
Yeah, he can.
Like if Cyrus doesn't make that second land, but if Cyrus does make the second land, then he might just go ahead and
try Kitchen Finks or something along those lines.
Well, you missed the land.
I don't know, it's tough whether you want to mana leak the Inquisition. It depends what else would be in Matt's hand at that point, if it's something he wants to hide, like a Cryptic Command or something. But we actually came to the agreement afterwards that it would have been a better idea to actually let Cyrus keep the Deathrite for an extra turn. Because if Cyrus doesn't draw that land, then, you know, it just changes the whole complexion of the game. Because that Tarmogoyf is really such a beating for a control player to have to deal with.
Yeah, especially one that resolves around burn. Also, did you notice Matt's deck trolling him there by giving him the spell snare the turn after the Tarmogoyf comes down onto the table? And with Cyrus being on a Multi 5 here as well, he must think that this is a bit of a freebie that he might be getting here. because he's mulliganed hard, missed his missed his second land drop, and he's still well in this game at this point. Of course, Matt does have Supreme Verdict in his hands.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you do see a lot of. I mean, that's a lot of the thing when someone gets screwed for mana, and they have sort of a Deathrite Shaman out. But what happened was, because Matt only had the 2 land, is it then opened up a window for Cyrus to actually do something on the next turn, assuming he top decks a land. Whereas if you keep the mana leak in your hand, he doesn't have that window to drop the most devastating card for control onto the board, which is the Tarmogoyf.
He's probably got the 2 most devastating cards against control on the table at this point.
What, 2 Tarmogoyfs?
Well, no, I think Liliana's... I think if we were... when we spoke to Matt, he said Liliana was pretty much the worst card in Magic for him.
Yeah, he made no qualms about it. It's just a disgusting card against control, especially the way Jund is just able to empty its hand so quickly and then just turn it into all one-sided.
Yep. So I will use my Deathrite Shaman on the cards that I have discarded. Oh look, it powers up my Tarmogoyf as well. It's everything just being that little bit of, that bit more synergistic. And Matt's going to wrath away that Tarmogoyf now.
Of course, the main issue being, of course, that because the Tarmogoyf hit the board, as we see now, Matt then has to use a lot more resources to deal with the Tarmogoyf than the resources he needs to just counter it before it comes out. Like 4 mana to just deal with 1 creature, and at that point, this is on a sort of a very crucial turn where he needs to be doing other things.
Yep, and Matt just got lightning bolted down to 1, but 1 is not naught, so can he... Can he recover here?
But
Raging Ravine from Cyrus. Oh, I think we've just had a very small mistake from Cyrus there.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Yep, thought as much. Laid his land and then activated Liliana, and Matt in response cryptic commanded and made Liliana discard herself to herself.
Yeah, it's actually a very good play from Matt, and again something a lot of people overlook.
I'm not sure it's too much of a mistake from Cyrus, because that Raging...
No, it is a huge mistake.
Well, the Raging Ravine is going to kill Matt anyway.
I mean, you know what Cryptic Command does.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a case that he probably wants that Raging Ravine in play anyway, because it's a threat. It's going to die, but...
Yeah, I mean, because it was a Raging Ravine, it's okay, but if it was like any sort of basic land...
Yeah, then it would have been a pretty big mistake, I think, at that point.
In fact, he had a really funny little incident where the judge actually ran over and said, "Oh, you know that Lily goes back to your hand, not to the graveyard." And Matt's like, "No, there was an effect on the stack there, Judge. How about you let us play the game?"
Yeah. Well, it was a very nice play from that.
Yeah, and even though you're on 1 life, as you said, 1 life's not 0, so you still got to carry on playing towards your outs and sort of playing to win.
Yeah, I mean, if Matt has... I mean, Matt does have Sphinx's Revelation in hand, so he can, potentially draw out of this.
Yeah, I mean, Matt probably considers this to be his first really tough game, because Cyrus doesn't make many mistakes.
No, Cyrus is a very solid player.
And
sorry,
yeah,
Cyrus,
okay.
we might be butchering, it might be Cyrus, but Tarmogoyf there, and Think Twice from Matt.
Matt will have beaten other very solid players already. However, this is the first sort of very solid player who's brought the right deck to the tournament.
Yeah.
That's the other aspect of things. People can be really good at Magic and just turn up with the wrong deck for the tournament.
Celestial Colonnade from Matt there, so that's another line of defence against this Tarmogoyf. He can...
I think I'll swing my guys.
I think Tiago's going to take a jump into the bin there. Sphinx's Revelation for 2 there from Matt. He obviously would have preferred a bit of a bigger one, but when your hand is nothing, you have to continue drawing. I think that Matt's deck really sort of dumped on him here. He's drawn, I think, 4 extra cards since 4 or 5 extra cards since he went down to 1 life, and has seen pretty much lands and spell snares. I think is his.
And that's that's part of the game.
Yep. Yep. Celestial Colonnade's going to jump in the graveyard again.
It's important to carry on playing towards your outs.
Obstinate Baloth from Cyrus. So it now is, do you draw Supreme Verdict or not?
It's certainly a nice little sort of main deck choice, the Obstinate Baloth, I thought.
Matt flashes back another Think Twice and reveals a grip full of cards which do nothing.
So Cyrus takes down the first game, and we'll pick it up after sideboard, game 2.